We are here today with Nathan Thompson, who is going to tell us all sorts of interesting things about the world of writing that hopefully none of us have never heard before, because what else would be the mysteries of the universe? So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on.
Okay, well, my name is Nathan Thompson. I started writing professionally about around this time last year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I just published my fourth novel, fourth book in my series, Challenger's Call. It's called Lighting Distant Shores.
Ooh.
I am about to launch a new novel called Soul Ship in a different series
Uh-huh.
come September. But yeah, I write science fiction, fantasy, mostly either game lit or in other subgenres similar.
Uh-huh. Okay, so sci-fi and fantasy.
Pretty much.
That's always fun. You find it difficult crossing genres? Because I know people lump them together, but they are different.
Yeah, they can have different themes, and actually, my subgenre is called game lit or lit RPG,
Yeah.
where the character either enters a game or enters a world that takes on aspects of the game.
Uh-huh.
And so it's gives me a lot of flexibility into how much magic versus how much scientific theories
Sure.
I can play with, and it's been a lot of fun.
So your first series, is that fantasy or sci-fi?
Gamelet, both. He throws fireballs and he deals with computer devices.
So
So
yes.
yes.
Okay. So what's the plot like? No spoilers.
Okay, well, the plot starts out with a character who is basically a young man that has recently lost everything. He's become
Hmm.
disabled. He's become an orphan. Well, his mother's alive, but his father's recently passed away.
Hmm.
He's dealing with a lot of complications with that, and he's trying to recover his body to work normally.
Oh, okay.
And he's trying to preserve the things he had before, his scholarship, his chances at college,
Hmm.
and those opportunities to help with that. He's been playing a VR simulation game
Hmm.
that has been beneficial to his body's balance and memory. And one night he starts having what he thinks are dreams where he's in a world that mimics the aspects of the game
Ah.
and people who need his help. And when he helps them in what he thinks are dreams and wakes up in the morning, it's as if his actual body has leveled up like his supposedly video game body in the other world.
Ooh, very cool.
Thank you.
I take it it's not actually a dream.
No, no.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. So, what was it like writing disabled characters? Because I know that can be difficult sometimes.
It can, and there's definitely, I think as writers, we deal a lot with relating to people through our works,
Hmm.
and that requires us sometimes to try and very carefully put ourselves in some other person's shoes and as accurately and as bestly as we can reflect what they're going through in a way that they appreciate instead of feeling neglected.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really challenging. It also depends on what kind of story you want to write. For me, I actually have my mother actually has a disability
Hmm.
similar to the main character, and it's called complex regional pain syndrome.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's basically your body gets an injury, and your body thinks it has that injury forever. And
Ye-
so, yeah, the pain persists. Like, say, I've heard of one girl who gets a wasp sting, and the pretty much until either a miracle happens or for forever, your body constantly feels like it's getting that wasp sting over and over and over.
Oh, ow.
Yeah, yeah. And for my mother, it's she feels like she's gotten a broken toe over and over and over and over, and it's extremely painful. And she's managed it heroically, and it's making my book sound really depressing now that I think about it.
No.
But the main character, basically, he's also a football player, and after a really bad tackle, he wakes up with what he thinks is a concussion.
Oh,
But the effects of the concussion keep persisting and getting worse, and to where it affects his balance and his memory.
yeah.
So
Ow.
that takes out most of his opportunities. And since my book's portal fantasy,
Hmm.
one of the things about that genre is it provides a way to show someone who goes from having no opportunities to a different set of opportunities or poor opportunities, basically a change of opportunities.
Right.
And I wanted to see if I could take a person from a very low point to a very high point.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's been my challenge in writing the series. I wanted to do it without being too depressing and without being too cheesy.
Yeah.
And so far, the fans seem to really like it. The books have done well enough for me to write full time as a job.
Hooray.
And yeah, I enjoy writing them, and people seem
Okay.
to enjoy reading them.
No, it sounds very interesting, and I've never heard of that particular syndrome before, which is not surprising because my foray into the medical world is limited.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff out there.
Ooh, oh, so much fun. So you started writing full time a year ago, but before that, were you doing part time stuff or just?
I would basically write when I had time, like when the bills were paid. Part of what helped me do, I think about 20 years before, I've been just trying to write for fun, I guess you could say. About the last 10 years, I've been trying to write to make a career out of it. Shortly after I finished college, and I think I tried to go the traditional publishing route,
Yeah.
and it didn't work out for me. And when I did more research, it looked like it wasn't going to be a good fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I became a dad and I stayed home so that the wife could pursue her career,
Mm-hmm.
I started reading books when I wasn't taking care of my son, and I started reading other books like this, where someone
Yeah.
was taken to a game-like world, or were basically books where someone could see how they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a passion for it and decided to write my own. And I wrote the first one in about 18 months while I
Wow.
was either working or staying at home with the kiddo. And it took off really well to where the wife felt a lot of peace about, yes, honey, you can do this full time. And she was crazy supportive. And so I wrote the next one in about 3.5 months, and
Wow.
it did really
That's
well
quick.
too.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. Part of my inspiration came from seeing other people do their books
Mm-hmm.
quickly but still well, and it motivated me to pursue giving myself word count deadlines,
Uh-huh.
and that got a lot easier once I saw I could still eat doing it. And yeah, yeah.
So, what has the last year looked like for you completely changing into the writer world?
Oh, good and challenging. The thing about writing full time is it feels like it's not something high school, college, or a tech school really prepares you for.
No, not so
No.
much.
But yeah, and even when I took a creative writing class in college, they're like, okay, just throw something out there and bring it by the next class. And that sort of helps, but writing full time, it's instead of me going to some place that I have to go or someone will be mad at me and fire me, I have to get myself out of bed,
Yeah.
figure out a deadline that works for me, figure out how my sales are doing, find my own cover artists, find my own editors, and I'm really grateful for that too because that's gone really well too. Fortunately,
Yeah.
a fantastic relationship with my editors. I have a fantastic relationship with my cover artist, and I just felt
Okay.
really lucky to meet the guys,
Yes.
gals. But
Yes.
yeah, uh, it's hard because I have to hit a certain word count, and I have to hit it while taking care of other responsibilities and working things out with the family. Like you have to see
Hmm.
the family, you have to see the people who love you and support you, and you also have to write your books fast enough to feed them. So
Yeah. Yeah. That can be helpful.
yeah.
What is free time? We don't.
Free time was free time was this weekend and today. Uh, for this last book, I actually told myself and looked at my schedule for the rest of the year because my
Mhm.
family's moving, and
Oh,
I decided that I need to get books out so that I can have time to be available for my family later.
yeah.
And so I wrote an 80K plus word book this month, and I just finished it last Thursday.
Wow. Well
Yeah,
done. 80K in a month. That's impressive.
thank you. Yeah, I felt really proud of myself, and that I chose not to think of the other people who I've heard who've done it even faster. They don't exist right now.
No, no, I have, yeah, I can't even think about that sort of thing. It takes me about 3 months to put out or to write the draft of a decently length novel, and I
Same here.
can't seem to go any faster than that
Yeah,
yet.
my body was telling me that, and it still feels like it was right, but
But you did it.
I did.
That's
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
thank you.
So, do you outline your novels, or do you just go for it?
This novel, I gave myself a brief outline and just went
Hmm.
for it. My previous novels that are longer and take longer to write, I try and type up a little outline. Usually, I spend a good bit of time thinking about the novel in my head,
Yeah,
and then I will write it down somewhere. And sometimes I have to write down an outline for every scene
yeah.
before I write the novel itself. That feels like it's transitioning for me now. It
Oh,
feels like the less I get on paper, the less can go wrong, in a sense. Like if some
interesting.
Right, like if something doesn't go according to plan in my outline, but makes more sense in the moment,
Uh-huh.
then it leaves me feeling torn. But if there's no outline to begin with, it cuts down the amount of time I can argue with myself while I'm
That
writing.
is true. That is true. But then there's also the what happened to the middle of my novel problem.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's still a learning experience for me. What I've decided to do is that I will write something down if I can't think of anything, and
Sure.
then I can always look at it later. I can always second guess myself after I've written the scene. I can always second guess myself after I've written the book.
uh,
And
Editing process.
exactly.
Yep, that's always fun.
No, it's not. But yeah.
Oh, so what does your editing process look like?
My editing process, I found, has to rely a lot on feedback from other people.
Yeah.
I will do a brief pass with myself, and usually by the end of the book, I can tell the places where I feel the most uncomfortable, where I want to go back and check.
Right.
And then after that, I start getting feedback from my editors, from my beta readers. Usually, the first time I try and go find my wife when she's not too tired and say, "Have I written anything too crazy, honey?" Since she has to live with me, since she
Yeah.
can't say that stuff, well, knock on wood, but yes.
Perfect.
And after that, I just go from there with professionals that have come to appreciate my work while still able to help it,
Yeah.
and as well as people who appreciate my work and are still willing to beta read it for free.
Yeah.
And basically from there, it becomes simpler. It becomes, once I get their feedback, things start to make sense where I'm like, okay, yeah, this scene does make sense. I was right.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I can tweak this scene a little bit. Or, that doesn't make sense at all. I need to go back and change that. He doesn't have three hands, and I've made it look like he has three hands. Thank you for the
Uh,
catch.
well, I mean, that could be kind of fun, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. It's fun
Like I
when you're not
say,
tired.
just magically grow an extra arm. Why not? Game glitch.
Yeah.
So your current series, the one you just finished, you said it's going to be more sci-fi?
Well, yeah, and there's a genre that actually is sort of taking off now called cultivation genre. I don't know if you're
Cultivation. No,
familiar.
I have not actually.
Okay. Well, for basically it incorporates a lot of elements in Chinese fantasy,
Uh-huh.
and a guy who's really made it popular over here and who's written some fantastic books is Will White with his Cradle series,
Okay.
and
Write that
basically, yeah, they're great books. I made my editor read them before she reads this one.
down.
But basically, it's like lit RPG and game lit in that the characters progress through certain stages.
Hmm.
It incorporates a little bit of meditation or just dealing with mystical energy or magic or whatever that changes your body
Uh-huh.
and changes the person. And usually, it's in a world where everybody knows about this energy and they all change through different stages.
Uh-huh.
And the conflict comes from people not willing to share resources that helps them change, or one lone protagonist that wants to make his or her family better or themselves better or reach the very top.
Interesting. Interesting. That's I feel like I've read a book like that from the early 20th century Russian literature area, but I don't remember exactly because it's been a while. But that sounds very interesting.
Thank you.
So, okay. And what's it called again?
This one is called Soul Ship.
Soul Ship.
Yeah, the series is going to be called Soul Ship, unless I change my mind at the last minute. And the first book is called First Orbit. And this one actually takes place on Earth, where there is none of that cultivation magic, and the character is taken from Earth to a ship that's actually a living being that's also a woman to this world, and she's the last. I'm having a hard time describing it. Basically, the
blurb, yeah,
the ship robot woman's job is to keep this world working without going out of balance and having horrible things disrupt the universe.
Interesting.
And his job is to help her fix herself to where she can get back in the fight and basically stop all the bad cultivators or monsters from destroying the universe. And he has to help fix her and himself to where they can both fight.
Interesting. I like it. It's sort of AI human connection, but different. Yeah. I like it.
Thanks.
That sounds awesome. Okay, so back to the writing process. What's the least favorite bit besides editing? I'm including the publishing process in this as well, since,
the actually waking up and getting started kind of trumps editing for the least favorite.
Really?
Yeah, the first hour before I get myself out of bed is the roughest. When I'm actually doing it, I'm having fun. But getting started is often the hardest part of the day.
Coffee.
Once I get started, coffee, breakfast, taking a moment to fully wake up and straighten out my head. That's the hardest part, it feels like. But yeah, after that, it starts to get easier.
So I take it you're not a morning person.
No. I think I was a long time ago, but no, not anymore.
So then do you do most of your writing at night, or?
I shift into gear actually after that hour when I wake up, and I'm finally like, okay, yes, I am wake up. Yes, I do like people. It's a great day. Let's get going. Then for the next 4 hours, that seems to be my best time.
Okay, interesting. So mid-morning after the initial caffeine rush. Yep.
Right.
Yep, that's always a good one. So as far as people go, how do you find balancing the full-time writing with, there's actually a whole world out there that I should maybe interact with?
Yeah. I try and leave a day out of the week for that, for starters, and I try and leave, say, the evening for talking to family, or the early morning and evening for talking to family.
Yeah.
When a deadline comes, like when the book has to be ready for an editor, that's when my family's been really understanding, where I have to stay up till midnight or a little past midnight to get the last changes done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging, but I guess it's like any other job where once you really get into it, once you get you have to get a rhythm worked out.
Yeah, well, basically, us writer types are starting a company.
Exactly.
The 80-hour work week is not feasible most of the time.
No.
But we can try, sort of, maybe. Yeah. All right, is there a story out there you wish you had written? And it can be any style, genre, any medium.
Oh gosh, all of them, it feels like. I wish I'd written Cradle, but I didn't, and the author's done a fantastic job with it, and probably better than anything I could have come up with. Every now and then I see something that I was like, gosh, I wish I'd come up with that. Usually things that mix science fiction and fantasy, or space and magic. I read this like, oh, that was really cool. I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah, I just finished reading a book called The Big Ship at the End of the Universe, or at the Edge of the Universe, or something like that. And it combined magic with, spacers, and it was the first time I've seen something on quite that scale. So it's very impressive to always look out for that sort of a thing, and I wish there were more of them.
Oh.
So yours is on the list, since that is definitely something I want to look out for.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, so the Cradle series, or the, I guess, cultivation genre, I've never heard of it, so where do you think it came from?
Well, it seems to have gotten popular in China maybe about 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I know of one author, I think she's Danish, but I can't swear by that, who wrote the Blue Phoenix series about maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago. And I think a lot of people somehow someone started reading translated Chinese novels,
Hmm.
and it spread most through Royal Road and a bunch of free sites. And it feels like it's just started getting going these past couple of years on sites like
Hmm.
Amazon and maybe Barnes and Nobles.
Sure.
Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, one of those bookseller types.
Right, right.
Huh,
But
interesting.
yeah,
So where do you think the genre overall, science fiction and fantasy, or one or the other, is going to head? Is this going to be expanding, or are we going to
I
go back to old trends?
I think old trends will be preserved and new trends will be added. And I feel like that's happening for a lot of things. Like it seems like the publishing genre, like with traditional publishing houses, they
Hmm.
go in cycles. And I don't think that's from what I actually talked to a guy and he's like, yeah, people are still writing stories about vampires. People are still writing stories
Oh
about
yeah.
werewolves. We just get tired of reading those stories as the publishers. And now that indie publishing is opening up,
Hmm.
and I'm an indie publisher, I think you're going to find more stories like that. It's just that new things are going to constantly be added. I
Right.
think you're going right now. It feels like a lot of readers are interested in stories that show progression, like Lit RPG and Cultivation. I don't know how large that group is, but there's a definite interest in it.
Oh yeah.
And so you'll probably see more stories that deal with those elements. Like maybe they're not lit RPG, maybe they're not cultivation,
Hmm.
maybe they're just traditional fantasy, traditional science fiction, but they'll play a larger role on focusing how does the certain characters grow.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. I'm always curious to see where things are going to go because predicting the future is rather difficult.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot. Could happen again.
I'm wrong most of the time, and I just kind of smile and nod and keep moving on. Always fun.
Yeah.
So, for the technological aspects of your novel, specifically probably the VR, um, there's a word for it. The mask thingy that you wear, VR
Right.
headset.
Yes.
So, how much research did you put into that sort of a thing?
5 minutes maybe. That
Okay.
aspect only lasts for the first couple of chapters in the story before he goes off into the other worlds. And there, I try and research actually the more medieval aspects are what I wind up
Oh, really?
trying to research now. Like it's easier for me to research what is how much does an actual sword weigh,
Mm-hmm.
what armor do they weigh. That seems to be more prevalent, and usually since it's in first person, if he doesn't understand something and someone else does, that's kind of okay.
Uh-huh.
Every now and then, when he tries to use magic in a way he knows from Earth, then I'll try and check those physics.
Okay.
But if he's using some scientific machine, I maybe do a brief scan on the physics, but I kind of hand wave the science things almost more than I hand wave the magic. So I'm doing it backwards. But
Well, that depends on
yeah,
what your perspective is and how exact you want your physics to be.
good point. Good point. But I feel like I try and make sure I get the human elements right, even more than
Yeah.
magic. That makes sense. Brandon Sanderson, I think I heard him once say that I'm known as the weird magic guy, but I'd rather be known for the guy that looks at how what magic does to people.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, that's a good philosophy. I like it.
Thank you.
Okay,
What's the claim is?
tangential time, tangent. Best money you ever spent as a writer, and I get mostly the editor cover design from this, but I've also had a trip to the Grand Canyon and buying weapons that were showing up in the novel because why not?
Gosh, I could wish I could get away with that.
Right?
Yeah, let me talk to the wife. Honestly, good editor, good cover designer. I think money spent on that versus money that whatever it is to keep my mind and body healthy.
Mm,
Definitely the mind. I still need to work more on getting the body healthy, but I guess definitely like a good cover is you spend what you need to, what you can on that, what you can and need
yeah.
to, and an editor is something I spend as much money as I can get away with on if I can. Yeah, it's also about cultivating certain relationships.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think time, money, and relationships kind of tie together for spending and writing.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend one on something, it's a good idea to get all three in to a healthy amount.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's a three-way tie between good editors, good cover artist, and making sure I stay healthy.
That's probably pretty important considering you are the author.
Yep. Need these fingers to work, need this head to work.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so you said you were trying to get into the traditional publishing side of things for a good long while, and you went indie instead. Hooray, all for indies. But what would you say to people trying to actually get into the industry?
Through the traditional ways?
Whichever way.
Well, I think if you're going with the traditional route, I think it's more important these days to research what a publisher can do for you.
Yeah.
Uh, I know if they're actually, I've seen a number of other authors like me start their own publishing houses afterwards in their little small presses. And I think each offers their own advantages. I think the traditional publishers are still really good at physical book copies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Although I think that might vary between client from client to client. I would say if you're going to go through traditional published route, uh, make sure you're clear on what their expectations are for you
Yeah.
and what you're expecting them to do. Are you expecting them to market your book? Are you expecting them to just print your book? Are they expecting you to do your own marketing?
Yeah.
If you're going indie, then I think you should research as much as you can your genre, what people are reading, what you're interested in writing.
Mm-hmm.
I think developing your own team is important to try and develop your own fan base if you can before you go live.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I think it's just making sure you're clear on your own expectations and the expectations of anyone you're working with.
Sure. I know a lot of traditional publishers, except possibly the big five, but I'm not sure on that, expect you to do a lot of the marketing yourself.
Right, right.
And my theory is if they do expect that, then why can't I just do it myself?
Yeah, that was my conclusion after I did some more research. And I was like, the biggest help I need with is marketing. And if that's what I'm going to do on my own, then I think I'll keep most of my profits.
Yeah.
But and no disrespect intended to anyone who chooses a different route.
No,
But
no.
but yeah, I don't regret doing this full time on my own. I'm having a blast doing it.
Yeah. It's great fun. I love causing trouble, sanctioned trouble, by the way. People are paying me for this. Yeah, it's pretty great. Always fun. Okay. Okay, so what is the worst scene to write? Beginning, middle, or end?
Gosh, I don't know. They're all the worst and best for different reasons. The best scene for the beginning is when I have the energy for the idea.
Yeah.
The worst scene is making sure I know what I want and not accepting that I may not have everything fleshed out at the beginning. The middle is probably when I start to second guess myself the most and look forward and think, oh, I have all this much more writing to go. That was especially true in my first series because this new book is about half of the size of my other books. My other books are about 180,000 words long.
Each?
And yeah, each.
Okay, interesting.
And by the time I got to 90,000 words is when I started going, I feel like I've already written a book and I have another book to go. But at the same time, there's this sense of accomplishment and also this dread for you have to do it again in a sense. And so it depends on what mood I am, whether I'm thinking, okay, by now I feel more confident on the direction the story's going. I just have a lot more work to do.
Yeah.
And by the end, it's, oh, I've gotten it all almost done, but I'm so tired, and I really just want to type the end on the next page and
Yeah.
see what my fans say. Uh,
So how
yeah,
is that writing? I mean, because 180K, 200K is probably, I mean, that's epic fantasy level writing, which you don't often see outside of epic fantasy. Um, I think most of them are what, 100K, probably about half your size,
well, yeah,
80 to 100.
the first couple of Harry Potters around 70 some K,
Yeah,
80K, and then it starts jumping. In my genre, there feels like there's a split between a lot of short books and some people who do want to do an epic version
right.
of the Gamlet genre. And so there are a couple guys that actually get to the 200, even 300K range, and I don't know how
Wow.
they do it or what's wrong with them, but they're great writers.
Wow. Okay, 300K seems a little bit excessive.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how they do it, and I'm not sure I want to know how they do it. I don't want to find out and then think I can do it and then do it and regret it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a different feeling. Like this month, having a shorter, it was easier for me to get to a certain point and say, well, I'm still 10% done as of today, or I'm
Right.
still 5% done as of today.
Right.
Uh, it feels like a lot of fans also, though, prefer longer books, especially in my genre. And I think that was part of the attraction to my first book. Is back then there were slightly more short books than there were long books,
Mm-hmm.
and so when my first book came out and it was like 700 pages if you were to type it out, a lot of
Yeah.
fans were like, "Oh, I love this." So I guess whenever I'm doing one, I just try and remind myself of the advantages. Short books, like, hey, at least I'm almost done. And long books, I'm like, hey, at least a lot of people really read this, or
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
interesting. Huh. I have not considered that. I didn't. I mean, I know that longer books are very popular, but I guess it never just struck me as an actual correlation there, which it should have because, duh.
Yeah, and I think since I do my books through Kindle Unlimited, I try to
Mm,
tell myself, well, if it's a bigger book, then at least the KU readers will be happy. Or
yeah. 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 All right. Well, is there anything else you want to add, writing related or not?
oh, good question. I feel like all that just flew out of my head.
Yep.
Uh,
That's exactly
no,
what happens every time.
yeah, yeah. I think that's all I know about writing related. I think I'm just fresh out of good advice by this point.
Okay. So when's your next book coming out?
My next book should release by mid-September at the latest.
Mm.
Its first round of editing is almost done. The cover is about halfway done,
Mm.
and I'm hoping to get it out pretty quick.
Okay,
So
very exciting.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for chatting with me. It was great fun, and I learned all sorts of things about the cultivation genre, which I have never heard of before and now need to research.
Happy to help.